My name is Daniel, I'm 34 years old, and for the longest time I believed I had the perfect marriage. Or at least, that's what I thought. But one night, while my wife was supposedly on yet another one of her business trips, I found myself staring at evidence that would shatter everything I believed about her, about us, and about the life we had built together. I didn't react right away. I didn't scream, I didn't confront her, and I didn't fall apart. No, instead I started planning. Because if she thought she could live a double life behind my back, she had no idea what I was capable of when I finally decided to fight back. But before I tell you how I exposed her in front of everyone, let me ask you this. Where are you watching this story from right now? Drop it in the comments below, because our community of revenge seekers is growing every single day, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. Trust me, you won't want to miss the stories we share here. Now, let's go back to where it all began. I always thought my marriage was built on trust. For years, I believed that my wife and I were on the same team, fighting through life together, lifting each other up, and celebrating every small victory we earned. We had been married for almost 7 years, and from the outside looking in, most people would have said we were the perfect couple. We had a beautiful home, steady careers, and what appeared to be a strong, loving bond. But here's the thing about appearances, they're often nothing more than carefully constructed illusions. The cracks in my marriage didn't appear all at once. They crept in slowly, quietly, like shadows slipping in under a locked door. At first, it was subtle. My wife, Hannah, had always been ambitious, chasing promotions and opportunities in her career. She worked in corporate sales for a major company, and travel was part of the job. Early on, I admired her drive and how she managed to climb the ladders so quickly. But over time, those business trips began to increase. It started with the occasional weekend away, then entire weeks, and eventually she was gone more often than she was home. Each time she packed her suitcase, she would kiss me goodbye, reassure me it was just work, and promise to call when she could. At first, I didn't question it. After all, I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? But trust can blind you if you're not careful. The first time my suspicion truly stirred was one evening when Hannah returned from a conference in Chicago. She came home late at night, exhausted, dragging her suitcase into the living room. I remember sitting on the couch, waiting for her, and noticing something odd. Her suitcase looked barely used. Usually, after a week-long trip, it would be stuffed with clothes, paperwork, and the usual travel clutter. But this time, it looked light, almost empty. When she went to shower, I glanced inside, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But what I saw only fueled my unease. The suitcase held only a few pieces of clothing, and none of them looked worn. The tags from her hotel stay weren't there either, something she normally had attached to her luggage. When I asked her casually about the conference, she brushed it off, gave me vague details, and quickly changed the subject. I wanted to believe her. So I let it go. But that was the first time I felt the seed of doubt take root. Over the following months, the pattern repeated. Trips out of town with short notice. Excuses that felt rehearsed. Phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. The distance between us grew, and so did the hollow pit in my stomach. One night, after she left for yet another trip, I sat alone in our living room, scrolling through old photos of us on my phone. I remembered the way she used to look at me, the way her laughter filled the house, how she used to talk about our future, kids, vacations, plans for retirement. But now, it felt like all of that had evaporated. Something inside me whispered that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining it, that my wife was hiding something. So, I decided to stop ignoring the signs. The first step I took was small. I asked her for details about her trips, pretending to be interested in her work. Where exactly was the hotel? What company was she meeting? Who was on her team? The more I pressed, the more defensive she became. She gave me vague answers, sometimes even snapping at me for not trusting her. That hurt. But it also confirmed my suspicion. She was lying. The second step was bolder. I began checking her social media. Nothing suspicious appeared at first. She was careful, almost too careful. Her posts were generic, hotel lobby photos, airplane wing shots, the occasional picture of a meal with the caption, "Work Trip Life." But something felt off about those pictures. One night, I reverse-searched one of her hotel photos online and discovered it wasn't hers. The same image appeared on a travel blog posted 3 years ago. That's when the truth started to unravel. Hannah wasn't just lying to me, she was staging her lies. I felt sick to my stomach, staring at the evidence. My heart pounded as the reality set in. My wife was deceiving me, crafting an illusion to cover her tracks. But the worst part? I didn't know what she was hiding. Was it another job? Another family? Another man? The questions ate at me and sleep became impossible. Every time she left on a trip, I was left pacing the house, wondering where she really was and who she was with. Finally, I decided to gather proof. If she was lying, I needed undeniable evidence. Something she couldn't dismiss or talk her way out of. The opportunity came one Friday evening. Hannah had claimed she was flying to Dallas for a 3-day client meeting. I kissed her goodbye at the airport, pretending like nothing was wrong, but as soon as she walked through the security gate, I pulled out my phone. I had installed a tracking app on her car weeks earlier. If she really was flying out, her car would stay parked at the airport. But within hours, I saw the dot moving across town. She wasn't in Dallas. She wasn't even on a plane. She was driving to a small hotel just 30 minutes from our home. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I sat there staring at the little dot on my phone, the truth screaming in my face. She wasn't traveling for work. She wasn't in client meetings. She was here, close by, lying to me. I could have stormed to that hotel right then and there, confronted her, demanded answers. But I didn't. Something inside me told me to wait, to be patient. If I confronted her too soon, she might find a way to spin it, to gaslight me, to make me look like the paranoid husband. I needed more than suspicion. I needed absolute proof. And I was willing to play the long game to get it. That night, as I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful it was. And when I did, I would make sure she could never lie to me, or anyone else, again. Because if Hannah thought she could destroy my trust and walk away unscathed, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. After discovering that Hannah's business trips were nothing more than a carefully spun lie, I knew there was no going back. The truth was out there, lurking just beneath the surface, and I needed to rip the mask off once and for all. The following days felt like I was living two lives. On one hand, I played the devoted, trusting husband, nodding along as she rattled off excuses about her job. On the other hand, I was a silent investigator, documenting everything, connecting dots, building a case. I couldn't just accuse her without proof. People like Hannah, liars who invest so much in their facade, know how to turn the tables. If I went in blind, she'd twist it, make me the villain, and I'd end up apologizing for not trusting her. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. So I watched. I waited. I planned. The very next week, Hannah told me she had to go to Denver for a high-profile presentation. She left on a Thursday morning, suitcase in hand, kisses me goodbye like she always did, and promised she'd call after her flight. I already knew she wasn't going to Denver. As soon as she left, I checked the tracker I had installed in her car. Just like last time, her vehicle didn't stay at the airport. She drove in the opposite direction, this time to a different hotel. I felt the same sharp sting in my chest, but alongside it came something new, clarity. She wasn't just lying occasionally. She had a full-blown second life. This time I followed her. I drove slowly, staying a few cars behind, careful not to draw attention. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew I had to see it with my own eyes. When I finally pulled into the parking lot of a mid-range hotel, my heart dropped. Hannah's car was right there. I parked at a distance, waiting. Minutes later, I saw her step out of her vehicle. She wasn't in her usual business attire. Instead, she wore a casual dress, her hair done like she was going on a date. And then he appeared. A man I had never seen before walked out of the lobby, smiling as if he'd been waiting for her. She rushed into his arms, kissing him passionately, so passionately it erased any shred of doubt I might have had. There was the truth. My wife wasn't traveling for work. She wasn't building her career. She was having an affair. And she was bold enough to do it right under my nose. I wanted to burst out of my car, scream at them, expose them right there in the hotel parking lot. But anger wouldn't serve me. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and started recording. Video evidence, undeniable proof. They walked inside, hand in hand, and I stayed in my car for nearly an hour, my stomach churning, until I finally drove away. I had what I needed, but it wasn't enough. I couldn't just expose her with one video. She'd claim it was innocent, some ridiculous excuse like he was just a friend or colleague. So I dug deeper. Over the next few weeks, I became meticulous. I tracked every business trip. Each time, she went to that same hotel, or one nearby. Each time, she met the same man. Sometimes, they arrived separately, other times together. I filmed, I photographed, I documented. On one occasion, when she claimed she was going to New York for a 3-day seminar, I followed them to a restaurant. I sat at a corner table, pretending to scroll on my phone, as I watched them laugh, drink, and touch each other like a couple who had no fear in the world. She was radiant in his company, smiling in ways she hadn't smiled with me in years. It cut deeper than any knife. But every time the pain threatened to overwhelm me, I reminded myself of my goal: expose her. Not privately. Not quietly. No, Hannah's lies had been built in the shadows. Her mask had been painted in front of friends, family, and colleagues. So her downfall would be public. Everyone she had fooled would see her for who she truly was. One night, while she was showering after getting home late from work, I checked her purse. Hidden inside a zippered compartment was a second phone. A cheap burner model. The lock screen lit up with messages from a number she had labeled as R. I didn't need to guess who that was. Heart pounding, I opened the phone. No password. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. They were explicit, romantic, intimate in ways that made my blood boil. She called him my escape, my real love, and wrote things like, "I wish I could just leave everything and be with you full time." But the message that gutted me most was this: "Don't worry about him. He's clueless. He still believes every word I say." That was the moment something inside me broke. Not just the trust. Not just the love. But the illusion that my marriage was real at all. I copied the messages, forwarded them to myself, and carefully put the phone back. Now, I had the evidence I needed. Videos. Photos. Messages. Lies documented in her own words. All that was left was the timing and the stage. I knew Hannah was planning another trip soon. She had mentioned an upcoming weekend in Los Angeles for a sales summit. It was the perfect opportunity. I didn't want to just confront her privately. That would give her room to cry, apologize, and manipulate. I wanted to end it where her lies would collapse instantly, with no chance of repair. So I waited until she invited me to her company's upcoming team dinner, a semi-formal event where spouses were welcome. She had always been careful to keep her professional life separate from me, but this time, she wanted me there. Probably to keep up appearances. That's when the plan crystallized. I would walk into that dinner with everything I had: videos, photos, screenshots. And I would expose her in front of everyone. Not just friends. Not just family. But her colleagues, her boss, the very people she worked so hard to impress. She wanted to live two lives? I was going to make sure both of them came crashing down at once. In the days leading up to the event, I acted like nothing was wrong. I smiled, I kissed her, I even helped her pick out a dress. Inside, though, I was a storm waiting to erupt. Every time she laughed at my jokes, every time she told me she loved me, I thought about that burner phone. I thought about her kissing that man in hotel parking lots. I thought about the way she lied so easily, like it was second nature. But I kept my cool. Because soon, the mask would drop. And she had no idea it was coming. The night of the company dinner arrived, and I felt like a man walking into battle. My suit was pressed, my tie perfect, and in my inner jacket pocket rested a neatly organized folder with everything: printed photos, screenshots, and a USB drive with videos. Proof. Hannah was radiant as always, her charm perfectly polished for the evening. She smiled at me in the car, her hand brushing mine as if we were the picture of a happy couple. The irony almost made me laugh. She thought she was in control, thought her lies had me wrapped around her finger. But tonight, her kingdom of deception was going to collapse. The banquet hall buzzed with chatter, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Tables were dressed in white linen, waiters moved gracefully between guests, and the air smelled faintly of roasted meats and wine. It was the kind of event designed to impress, to remind everyone that success meant belonging to a polished, untouchable circle. Hannah fit right in. She introduced me to her colleagues, flashing that same practiced smile, bragging about me like she always did, her supportive husband. I shook hands, made polite conversation, all while holding the weight of my secret close to my chest. For the first hour, I played along. I laughed at jokes, sipped my wine, nodded during small talk. But beneath my calm exterior, my pulse beat like a war drum. Every tick of the clock brought me closer to the moment I had been waiting for. When dinner plates were cleared and her boss rose to give a short speech about the company's growth, I knew it was time. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, rising from my seat before her boss could continue. My voice was calm but steady, carrying just enough to silence the room. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, curious. Hannah froze beside me, her smile faltering, her hand tightening around her wine glass. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel tonight is the perfect occasion to share something important. Something about honesty, loyalty, and what happens when trust is broken." Whispers rippled across the tables. Hannah's eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking through her mask. "What are you doing?" she hissed under her breath, but I ignored her. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folder. My hands didn't shake. For weeks, I had imagined this moment, and now that it was here, I felt nothing but cold clarity. "You all know my wife, Hannah," I continued, my tone flat, almost clinical. "She's spoken at length about her commitment to this company, her frequent business trips, the sacrifices she makes to be successful. But what you don't know is that those trips, those long hours away from home, have been nothing but lies." The room fell silent. Hannah stood now, gripping my arm, her face pale. "Stop this. You're embarrassing yourself," she whispered urgently, but her voice trembled. I pulled away and laid the photos on the nearest table, sliding them toward the guests. Pictures of her kissing him in hotel parking lots. Entering rooms together. Her burner phone messages. Each photo hit like a hammer. "This," I said coldly, "is where my wife has been. Not in Denver. Not in New York. Not in Los Angeles. But here, meeting with him." A gasp echoed across the room. People leaned forward, some covering their mouths, others whispering in disbelief. Hannah lunged for the photos, but it was too late. They were already being passed around, eyes widening with every image. I pulled the USB from my pocket and held it up. "For those who doubt, I have video recordings too. I'll be sending them to anyone who wants to see the full truth." Her boss, a stern man with sharp features, stared at her like she had just confessed to a crime. "Hannah, is this true?" she stammered, her carefully constructed poise crumbling. "It's not what it looks like. He's twisting things you don't understand." But no one bought it. The evidence was too damning. The whispers grew louder, judgmental, condemning. Her colleagues, the very people she tried to impress with her flawless facade, were now looking at her with disgust. I watched her crumble in real time. The woman who had built her life on lies, who had smiled through betrayal, was suddenly stripped bare. "This marriage is over," I said, my voice steady and final. "You've humiliated me, you've betrayed me, and now, everyone sees who you really are." I left her standing there, trembling, pale, drowning in the weight of her exposure. I didn't wait for her excuses, her crocodile tears, her desperate attempts to spin the story. I walked out of that banquet hall without looking back, the sound of shocked voices trailing behind me. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt free. The lies no longer weighed me down. I wasn't the clueless husband anymore. I was the man who had taken control, who had torn down the mask she thought she'd wear forever. The divorce was messy, of course. Hannah tried to fight it, tried to claim I was cruel, tried to salvage her reputation. But the evidence I had gathered spoke louder than her words. The court saw everything. She lost. She lost the marriage, the respect of her colleagues, and the image she had worked so hard to maintain. As for me, I walked away clean. Looking back, the pain of betrayal still stings, but I don't regret the path I took. Exposing her wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. Some people live their whole lives behind masks, deceiving everyone around them. But the truth has a way of breaking through, no matter how carefully it's hidden. And when it does, it doesn't just crack the mask, it shatters it completely.